and I am really excited to share with you some just very easy, simple ways to integrate vocabulary into what you're already doing, as well as giving you some great teacher tips for all aspects of the English language arts. I will be at NCT and Allen coming up literally next week, and if you can't make it, feel free to follow me, #NCTE16, or just follow at Vocab Gal to see all the great pictures and learning ideas from NCTE and Allen. So, as you can see, this is our webinar today, and so we're going to do some engaging activities for grades 6 through 12, and I would like to have a goal for every webinar I do, and so this specifically is to get some engaging vocabulary activities and games so that your students can learn new words in fun and interesting ways. Again, down here at the bottom, it'll tell you that you can request a book that Sadler offers, which is an amazing book, and you can use all of these ideas with that book if you don't have one already, or other books as needed. So this one, even my third grader says, "Said is dead," and they say it a lot out loud, and then I see it in junior high classrooms and high school classrooms and the graveyard of said. So this handout, literally you could give to every single student, and they can put it in the back or the front of their notebook. And so you can see some of these amazing words that they can use instead of said. And there's so many. This is just a great wealth resource when you're having them write narrative writing, and you have so many different options to choose from. So I just love this handout because it's really helpful in the writing, which we always struggle with our students. Now, specifically about vocabulary, we know that Thanksgiving is coming up, and it is an American tradition for everyone. And so literally this handout that you're going to get in the email that Laura sends to you, you can also find on my resources. But we have this great example of, okay, what does Thanksgiving look like? And then you'll notice that the examples have lots of vocabulary roles to describe this food. And doing this activity always makes me hungry, but it's something that really engages the students. And you can say, hey guys, what are you going to serve for Thanksgiving? Write out some nice descriptive phrases about the foods, and then maybe even put them at the table and give everyone a little menu and make it real world and authentic, and see if you can impress grandma. And so really we have a lot of different ways to describe all of this food, and you can say it doesn't have to necessarily be a traditional Thanksgiving feast. If your family doesn't do that, you can do all kinds. And you can also make it up. If you know that your students might struggle with doing this, you can say make up the wild, crazy foods that you want, and maybe it's all mashed potatoes and desserts. Go for it. Really the key here is that you're describing the words, and you're using vocabulary to describe something that students enjoy, and so that they see vocabulary as something that works in real life, and that's not something sort of arbitrary and far away only in English classrooms. So have some fun with this, and I really would like to know how you've used it, and have you had students take home their menus and use it with their families, because you can use this in a lot of different ways. So the Thanksgiving example vocabulary activity. Great way to do that Tuesday before Thanksgiving when they're all a little squirrely. Another great, easy activity that I never integrate enough poetry into my classes. It's just something that I want to do more of, and then time gets away from me. So this way, you'll notice here's the specific directions. We're talking haikus, and hopefully they already know what a haiku is, but a good little reminder. And then they're incorporating vocabulary into their haiku, and so they're really making an interesting poem, and they're working with vocabulary at the same time. So you'll notice that there are going to be 2 haikus per leaf, one on the front and one on the back. So giving them that little extra challenge, and you can have a contest who can use the most vocabulary words on their leaves, who can make the most beautiful haikus, the most interesting haikus, and different ones. And then again, print these out, put them up around the room, really make your entire classroom full of beautiful haiku leaves. And again, celebrate nature in its many forms. Again, another activity, we are trying to do fall activities right now, so you'll see this pumpkin patch, and something fun because we're still having pumpkin pie and other pumpkin related ideas here in November. And so you'll notice here that you have to describe a pumpkin using 3 vocabulary words. And then I really like this idea of using a simile, metaphor, pun, hyperbole, alliterative phrase, or literary technique, because really vocabulary shouldn't just be in isolation. We need to continue to push our literary techniques on students, and they have to work with those and know what they are and how to use them for better writing. And vocabulary is better writing. And so here, the pumpkin is a staple in the Thanksgiving meal, the most often penetrating the dessert table in the form of pie, creating envy among the lesser loved desserts. So there's a little personification for you. It is a disaster if the pumpkin pie is not at Thanksgiving. Such a disaster, although that may or may not be hyperbole depending on your family. And so having these examples to give them, and then just also having some fun, saying, look, vocabulary is fun to play with. Literary techniques are fun to play with, and that writing about different ideas that are important to you is a way to communicate something in a really eloquent way. And the more that you can use vocabulary, the more smart and engaging you'll sound. So the vocabulary pumpkin patch. Now, it is, the possibility has not quite hit Ohio, where I live, but I know that my sister-in-law had a snow day in Michigan a couple weeks ago, and so it is a reality that here, these snow days, and you may be living in Texas and know that you'll never have a snow day, but I know that your students may envy us Northerners and also sort of think about, okay, what does a snow day look like for anyone? And so kind of think about what are your favorite things to do. If I did not have those two children, as Laura mentioned, I would sit and read a book all day, but we're outside and we're running around in the snow. And so what would you do, and how would you design that perfect snow day? And by the way, use your vocabulary. Sound eloquent when you're describing this day, and really make it about you. Vocabulary should be personal as well, and the more that students see vocabulary as relevant to them, the more likely they are to use it, and especially remember it for all the different ways they need to use their vocabulary. Now, we have come to my very favorite activity, and you'll notice that this looks like a video game, and all along the way there are these amazing graphics. This whole entire handout, done in color. I will have to go to Kinko's, make 5 copies, and laminate them, because that is how it works. But I think the color copy is too beautiful to waste. And this is awesome, because once I laminate it, you have this handout that you can give each student, and so what it means depending on the person changes. And so you'll notice as someone starts, it depends on what they roll on what thing they land on. And so whatever they land on, whatever the student says is going to happen here. So if you land on the coin, now you have to write a rule that goes along with that. So maybe they have to use a vocabulary word in a sentence. Or maybe the student uses a vocabulary word and says, your turn has been adulterated and you must turn back by 3. So the student gets to decide what each item means, and they can use vocabulary in their description of that. So students need to know what adulterate means in order to understand what the direction says. Or the student playing the game has to use vocabulary appropriately, or he or she cannot stay on that space, or maybe they get a bonus if they do and they can move ahead. So the rules are totally up to the student. They're creating their own video game with their own rules and their own ideas. And I just feel like the graphics are just so much fun. And regardless if you have a 6th grade class or a 12th grade class, this is such a great activity. And they say, oh, we're getting to play a video game in class. Who knew? And then they're using their vocabulary in fun and unique ways. And just filling out this sheet as a homework activity or as the first day activity, that in itself is challenging the students to think about their vocabulary and use it in ways, again, that are relevant to them. Students love vocabulary, students love video games, and now they're going to love vocabulary too. Also, because this is so fun, you get to create, these are all the avatars that go along with the video game, and each one needs to be labeled with a little vocabulary word and the name of the wizard. So perhaps this is the wandering wizard, if wandering is one of your vocabulary words, or for us it is the wizard of augmentation, because he's going to make things better. Bigger and better. This may be the Knight of Temerity, because he's going to boldly go into all situations, or the Melodious Minstrel. So you can really have your students have a lot of fun with these little avatars. Maybe they even create their own if they are artistically inclined and creative. But labeling it with vocabulary, again, they're seeing vocabulary as something fun and adorable, as these guys are, and not this chore that I feel like so often when they come to school they see it as more of a chore to do. No, it's something that's applicable to them and fun and real life and just really interesting in the ways that they can manipulate it. So those are just a couple quick sample ideas for fall and for your students, because I know it's the craziest time of year. And so as we get into Thanksgiving and shorter days and December and our exams and so many goofy days for different things, I like to have a big store of all these activities and games at the ready. So I know that on the crazy day before a break, we're going to play a game. They're going to learn a whole lot, and they're not even going to think about the fact that they're learning, versus if I tried to do something more traditional, they're not going to be paying attention at all. So that's one of the best things that I love about my own blog, is I get to design the activities and the games that I want to use myself, and then the graphics team makes it so beautiful, so much more beautiful than I could ever do. So I want to point out a couple things to you. One, you'll notice you can just go to sadlerschool.com here at the top, or you can just Google Vocab Gal, and vocabgal.com will get you here too. And you'll see along the margins that first there's this vocabulary games, and there are a ton of games, not just the video game that I mentioned. So many different games that you can play with your students at any time so that they can see vocabulary as fun and interesting. The second one is writing with vocabulary, because again, the goal of vocabulary is not to memorize words for a test, but to incorporate it into your lexicon and speak better, write better, sound more articulate. And so I have a lot of different writing activities to show students, okay, we're not just regurgitating these words, but we're incorporating them into our writing and making it stronger. You'll notice here the big featured product is the vocabulary workshop. And I tell you, I became a consultant because I went to a new school and we were using this book at the school I'm at now, and it was so much better than the old book that I had used at my other school. And I was so excited. I went to NCTE back in 2004 and I said, I love your book. I love all the fun things you can do with it. Let me know if you ever need my ideas. And here I am, more than 10 years later, a part of the Sadler family, and I still love this book, and I get to help consult with it and make sure that it is legitimately used for teachers, and that all the activities and lessons in it can be used and are feasible for what our classes look like today. And I still get to be a part of that, which is very exciting. I like that my name is under the front cover. So there's that. Author interviews, I'm going to mention right here. You'll notice there is a whole section on the website where I have met and interviewed these amazing authors. I still feel a little intense that I got to hang out with James Dashner, and I interviewed him. Why is vocabulary great? Why should students learn words? Why is it important to write well? And Jared Krasaska, who's an amazing lunch lady author. He has his own TED Talks. Catherine Erskine, who won the National Book Award for Mockingbird. Obviously, Lori Holst Anderson and her Speak, as well as the Chain series. Veronica Roth from Divergent, Jack Antos, who also won the Newbery. Such wonderful, passionate, giving authors who took time to just meet with me for 5 minutes. The videos are very quick, 2 to 3 minutes, and really show to students, because when I say it's important to learn vocabulary, that's one thing. But when an author that they love says, hey, words are cool, it takes it to a whole nother level. So I even have John Green and many, many, many other authors talking about the importance and relevance of words. So again, hopefully you are walking away with engaging vocabulary activities and games so that your students will know their vocabulary, be able to integrate it into their writing, recognize it in their reading, and really do a lot with these words, not just memorize them as rote definitions. And again, you'll notice that if you want a copy of the book, you can certainly come here and get a copy of the book. And Laura, I'm going to see what is happening in regards to the questions.
Oh, that sounds great. Oh, thank you so much for all these great ideas. I'm sure everyone has written some of them down, but I'm happy to say that all these handouts will be emailed to you. You will be getting the PDFs for each one of these activities in an email in the next 24 hours. So we do have a few questions. The first question is, how long and how many days? So I guess it's how many days a week do you teach vocabulary, and for how long?
That is an excellent question, Laura, and one I get asked a lot. I will say that I have a 47-minute class, and that literally the students walk in the door before the bell rings and they get out their independent reading novel. And so we do that for the first 5 minutes. Is there, as soon as the bell rings, or not even before the bell rings, to 5 minutes into the period, we're reading independently. The students then put those books away, they get out their vocabulary book, and we spend the next 5 to 10 minutes going over 2 words of the day. And then we have a worksheet that's actually also on the vocabgal.com, and it's just a daily sheet where they down the 2 words of the day, they put their own definition, their own words, and then they write a sentence with that vocabulary word connecting it to the topic of their choice. Whether it be, I have a student who's obsessed with Breaking Bad, so all his sentences were about Breaking Bad. Another student who was obsessed with musicals, so all her vocabulary words were about musicals. Somebody loved the Kardashians. So they can really be about whatever topic the student is passionate about and how can they incorporate it into the student's interests. And then they do a mnemonic device or a picture. So we do 2 words a day, we share out a couple sentences, and that takes usually somewhere around 7 minutes. And then we move on to, again, at that point we have about 35 minutes left, and we do the rest of the work, but throughout the rest of the period, those 2 words along with any other word that we've had, I'm always pushing the students to use. I use them myself in my explanations, on my handouts, in my oral directions, so that we see vocabulary as not just something that we do for the first 5 to 7 minutes, but it's something that is a full part of our class and our written communication and our oral communication.
That's a great segue, because the next question has to do with how do you, or do you have any ideas of building a community of vocabulary the development of vocabulary in your school, a community in the school?
Okay, so there's a couple ways to do that. Number one is I'm obsessed with the word wall, and so I have all of my words, and I had 3 different units going. So at level E, level F, and level H all at the same time. So these huge, they're all 36 size font printed on cardstock paper on my windows. So we have a lot of vocabulary words just up there all the time for all the students to look at. I feel like a word of the week is a good thing, and we actually have a power word of the week that you could print out the slide for and then announce it on the announcements, have every teacher hang in their classroom. To really make it a community feel, it can be 1 word for the week. And teachers use it, and students use it, and there's a sticker given anytime a kid uses the word, and then maybe there's a prize at the end of the week, or just that gold star affirmation that, yeah, you use that word, you're using it correctly, or hey, you tried to use that word. And that's something that's happening throughout our school. And I know when I taught with a humanities teacher, he said he would always know when he used a vocabulary word because the whole class would gasp that he had just said a word that they had learned. So the more that students can gasp and be excited about this word that is circling throughout the whole school, I think the better.
Terrific. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about the SAT and the ACT vocabulary sections and how they've changed? And I know we have a couple of test prep books and things like that you may want to reference, but there's a question here of have they changed and how have they changed?
Well, and the nice thing is that I was very worried that it was going to look very different, and it doesn't. I think the biggest changes are, number one, it's asking students to identify what is this word in the context it is being used in a text. So the more that students practice that and do look at vocabulary words and see them in context, the better, because then what are the strategies to pick those words apart on a test? And also the more familiar they are with words in general, and especially more complex words, the easier they will feel about recognizing unknown words. So I think that's the biggest difference, is that they're in context, and we have to recognize how they're being used in context. The other big issue is in regards to the follow-up question. So it will be, okay, what is the meaning of this word as it's being used in context? And then the second question will say, what phrase in the passage helps you know that? And so having to not only know what the word means, but then being able to identify what were the context clues that helped you learn that, those are both great skills that teaching vocabulary and using sentences and identifying context clue type or context clue strategies, which again, the Sadler book does very well, and we do have a lot of test prep books that will help with that. Those are great strategies, and there's not really another way to do it other than practicing.
Terrific. Thank you. Here's a question. Are these resources available on your website, and what is the cost to download these activities if they are available? And I think I'll have to answer that one.
Yeah.
They are available on the sadlerschool.com/Vocab Gal website right there, and under the resources button where Sarah's pointing right now. And all of these resources, they have been grouped into different categories: games, tip sheets, activities, and ebooks. So go ahead to this website and download whatever you would like. Also, we hope that you would take a look at sadlerschool.com and vocabulary program, vocabularyworkshop.com. Vocabulary workshop for your schools, for your students. That's all the questions I have right here. It's okay if you come up with a question after the webinar. You can always email either Sarah at vocabgal.com or myself, legan@sadler.com, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. So Sarah, I want to thank you for joining us today with all your great ideas.
Hey, thanks. And Laura, I want to point out, the question is, what is the cost? The cost is free, which is so amazing to me, because I feel like with the teachers pay teachers era where you have to pay per worksheet, all of these are free, and they're done by a professional graphics team, and Sadler is providing all of these to all teachers because vocabulary instruction is critical, and the more we can make it fun and engaging, the better. So I love that about Sadler and the Sadler family approach.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your ideas. So thanks again for joining us, Sarah. We always look forward to having you on our webinar series. And thank you, everyone, this afternoon for joining us. We hope that you will download Sarah's ideas and use them in your classroom as soon as you can, and tell us and tell Sarah through her blog how well they are working. And let us know if you're interested in Vocabulary Workshop. We'd love to send you a free sample. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye now.